Mississippi has the highest death rate in the entire country per capita, the highest death rate. Yet the governor is calling the mandates that the president is putting on the workplace, etc., tyrannical. But worse, when asked, are you going to do anything about it? He says, he rambles. He doesn't say anything. And Jake Tapper was in his skin. I want you to see this interview. This is how it is supposed to be done. But the question always is, why do we have to wait? Why do reporters, why do journalists have to wait till things get out of hand instead of doing these things from the inception of the problem? Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Forget boosters. In some states, a majority of people still haven't gotten their first shot, such as Mississippi, where just 42% of people are fully vaccinated, ranking just 46 in the nation. And that's partly why Mississippi now has the highest death toll per capita from COVID-19 in the entire United States. About 1 out of every 320 people in Mississippi have died of coronavirus. And the Republican governor of Mississippi, Tate Reeves, joins me now. Take a listen to President Biden singling out your state.
Well, Mississippi, children are required to be vaccinated against measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, hepatitis B, polio, tetanus, and more. I propose requirement for COVID vaccine, and the governor of that state calls it, quote, a tyrannical type move.
Now, Governor, I understand the distinction between the federal government imposing a mandate and state law. Just stepping aside from the idea of President Biden imposing this, why are you and the Mississippi legislature willing to impose mandates for other vaccines, but not when it comes to the COVID vaccine that you yourself have gotten?
The Mississippi legislature has enacted laws for many years regarding vaccines of many types. It is unique to kids and their ability to go to our public schools. It's not vaccines mandated in the workplace. But the question here is not about what we do in Mississippi. It's what this president is trying to impose upon the American worker. The reality is this is an attack by the president on hardworking Americans and hardworking Mississippians who he wants to choose getting a jab in their arm and their ability to feed their family.
Well, I mean, the virus has killed more than 660,000 Americans. You're calling the move tyrannical. Just so our viewers understand it, President Biden says he's using a workplace safety law called the Occupational Safety and Health Act to justify the mandate. That law says that the government can impose an emergency order if it determines, quote, that employees are exposed to grave danger from exposure to substances or agents determined to be toxic or physically harmful, or from new hazards, and that such emergency standard is necessary to protect employees from such danger. I mean, for a reason to use this law, wouldn't it be during a pandemic with almost 2,000 Americans dying every day?
As we look forward, if this president has the ability to mandate vaccines, what powers do we not grant this president?
But let's talk about what you and the legislature in Mississippi is doing, because I'm sure I don't need to tell you, Mississippi this week became the state with the worst number of coronavirus deaths per capita. In fact, if Mississippi were its own country, you would be second in the world only to Peru in terms of deaths per capita. That's a horrible, horrible, heartbreaking statistic. So with all due respect, Governor, your way is failing. Are you going to try to change anything to change this horrible statistic from what you're doing already?
Yeah, well, obviously, in Mississippi, our legislature is a part-time legislature. Sometimes I wonder if in America, if our Congress was part-time, we wouldn't be in a better position. But let's talk a little bit about
better position than
Mississippi
what?
And where
Your
we
state
are
is
with the virus.
second worst in the world. I mean, how can you say that?
Let's talk about. The president wants you to believe that the Delta variant is only affecting Republicans in red states.
My question is, what are you going to do to change this?
The best thing for Americans to do to protect themselves from the virus. And again, we believe in personal responsibility. Individual Americans and individual Mississippians.
So you're not going to change anything?
The best thing that Americans can do, number one, is to talk to their doctor about potentially getting the vaccine. Because in our state, some 89% of those hospitalized and some 87% of those who are of the deaths are actually coming from those who are unvaccinated.
Governor,
it's outrageous.
Governor, if Mississippi were a country, you would have the second worst per capita death toll in the world. And I'm saying, are you going to do anything to try to change that?
Jake, as I mentioned earlier, deaths, unfortunately, are a lagging indicator.
So you think this is successful?
You want to talk about our number of cases, and then you want to talk about our hospitalizations. Now you want to talk about a lagging indicator which is sad and it's
I'm trying to
horrible.
talk about
And
dead
my
Mississippians
heart
is what I'm
breaks
trying to
for
talk
all
about.
If you want to talk about cases right now, talk about Kentucky or West Virginia or what's happening in North Carolina or moving into Southern Virginia.
I'm asking
This
you about
virus
your
is very
state, but I'm not going to
transmissible.
ask you about West Virginia or Kentucky. I'm going to ask you about your state, and I'm just saying you seem to be very, very activated when it comes to fighting the mandate from the federal government. And I understand the arguments you're making, but what President Biden is trying to do is save lives. Now, you can think it's bad policy or it's unconstitutional, and that's fine. We can have that discussion. We already have, but he's trying to save lives. I'm saying to you, your way's not working. And whether you say it's a lagging indicator or whatever your argument is, Mississippi now has, if it were its own country, the second worst per capita death rate in the world, behind only Peru. And I'm saying, are you going to try to do anything to change that? And I'm not hearing an answer.
Exactly right. I'm not hearing an answer, but I want to show you something about wordsmithing. You notice that he tries not to call it vaccine. He calls it jab in the arms. All of those are psychological cues for those who are gullible, for those who are predisposed to believe that if it's coming from a Democratic politician or Democratic government, that we are going to, what they're trying to do is harm us. These are psychological cues that they're using. But the one thing that Tapper did that he continued to do is, your way is not working. What you're doing is not working. Don't try to bring in other states or whatever. Your state is the worst in the entire country. And not only is it the worst in the entire country, it's the second worst in the world. And what country is it behind as far as per capita deaths? Peru. So, folks, these governors, red state governors, are implementing policies or lack thereof that's getting their population killed. Now, one can make the assumption, or one can make the statement that natural selection then will reduce the population of those who are naturally gullible, but the humanity in us should not desire that reality. Natural selection is what society is actually there to mitigate. Now, once again, this governor is what we should all start referring to as natural born killers, that they can know the truth and allow their gullible citizens to be killed, gives them that title justifiably. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.